So my next point is to meet your audience where they're at. So your content is about humanizing you and establishing you as the expert, right? It doesn't have to be all business because we as people aren't just all business all the time, right? We have family and we have friends and we have hobbies, and that's what makes us amazing people. And once again, people want to work with people, right? They want to work with people that they like and that they know and that they trust. And humanizing yourself starts that know, like, and trust factor just as much as you leading as the expert. So I'm going to show you a couple ways, or 5 different ways actually, 5 different pieces of content and ways that you can use content on social media in different ways and different strategies for that. So this first type of content is engagement and connection. What I mean by that is this Instagram post was actually a story about, basically the sum of the story was there was this man who kept wanting to be on my podcast. And so he submitted 7 podcast inquiries to be on my podcast. Well, the problem is, number one, he's a guy. My podcast is called How She Did That. I only have female guests, right? And number 2, he just wasn't an ideal person for the podcast. And so finally, I told my assistant Danny to write him back and everything. So it was a funny story basically of how Danny wrote a much nicer and much more eloquent message that I wanted her to send to him and everything. So this is just about engagement and connection. And as you'll see, I had 273 people who liked it. And there were a bunch of comments on oh my gosh, I've been in that situation too, where, I've had to do the corporate clapback kind of thing. And it just created communication and community in terms of a shared experience kind of. This next one is on and around education. So this was actually a post that I did in a Facebook group. We had a client that we worked with on her launch, and on her launch, she ended up making $1.5 million from her launch. So what I did, it was in one of the Facebook groups that I belong to, the business-centered Facebook groups, I led with the fact that I was a launch strategist and I owned a launch agency. And then I kind of told the high-level story of the things that worked really, really well in her launch. So I established myself as the expert and I educated, I gave a little bit of education around even if you don't work with me right now, here are some things that you can do to improve your launch outcomes. So that was really, really helpful. I got tons of engagement on that once again, in terms of people thanking me for the tips. And I ended up booking 5 new discovery calls that day just from this post because people saw that I established my expertise, but it wasn't in a, I'm the expert, you should just hire me, here's my link way. It was in a way that gave back and educated people. The next one is a promo post. So this is one that I think is really important and people forget about a lot of times. The fact that we are in business to make money. And so it's okay to promote yourself on social media. Remembering that you have to remind people what services you offer, what courses you offer, what your business is, what products you offer, whatever the case may be, right? And so not having every single post be promotion, but having some of them be really heavy promo and just saying, hey, this is what I'm offering. This was for my launch management course. And it was you can apply now. Applications are open, doors are open. Here's the link, go do that. And then we have inspiration. So this is just reminding people that they can do it, that if you've done it, they can do it, that sort of thing. Lots of quote kind of things, or stories. It could be a story about when you failed and then succeeded or something like that. It just makes people feel all warm and fuzzy inside, which we all need a little bit more of. And then entertainment. So this entertainment post was actually a reel. I love doing reels. If you don't like video, you're probably not going to like reels, but it's okay. But this was just me dancing in my dining room / living room and talking about the fact that we're not going to undercharge. We're not going to underprice ourselves. We're going to remember who we are and everything. It's entertainment. But what I like about this was that it was also educational and inspirational, right? So it kind of served 3 purposes in terms of one post. Okay, and then the last thing for this is to use hashtags that are relevant to your audience. So what I mean by that is if you're thinking in terms of, and this is especially relevant for places like LinkedIn and Instagram, if you're thinking about how is my ideal audience going to find my content, what are they kind of looking for in terms of hashtags? We like to think in terms of that and then use those hashtags. So Instagram allows up to 30. We don't always max out the 30. Sometimes we use 10, sometimes we use 20, sometimes we use all 30. But you'll see that this is kind of a mix. We use virtual assistant, business support, building boss ladies, women in business. Those are kind of the ones. And then we kind of mix and match it up. So really think in terms of not necessarily the hashtags that you're always searching for your own personal needs, but really the hashtags that your ideal client or ideal community would be searching. We're going to talk about how to do that in the inverse in a little bit as well.